Hola, buongiorno, buona lunedì, happy Monday, motivational Monday. It's time to play. Can you hear the ospreys off in the distance? And the sounds of the waves crackling and the sparkle of the sea as the sun hits it. Are you getting out in nature today and letting your inner child play? That's what I feel like today's theme needed to be, because we need to show up for ourselves from that perspective of we came into this life with a purpose. And when we're young, we're clearer, we're more naive to the externals and more aware of the internals. But the irony and the play of life, because this is kind of like this cosmic giggle, this universal play, that when we show up in this life, when we're born into these bodies, we're itty-bitty beings, fresh. We're still very naive and also in awe. We have an awareness, but we don't know how to articulate it. When we're young, we still have that beginner's mind. We still show up with everything being new. We don't show up with a preconceived idea because we have nothing to preconceive it with. We don't have a filter system that blocks us from receiving new input based on old input. Because when your database is void of any information, you're filling it up with new information. But there's this subtleness to when we come into this life that we have a knowing. We feel it, we sense it, we came from that knowing, that source of all that is. But the thing is that it's almost backwards. You would think, if we're going to come into this life, well, should we have that knowing carry us through? But that's where our souls come in knowing it has certain experiences it wants to have, to go through. Because if you don't have the contrast of life, how can you know what it's going to be like when you get to the other side? So, like, I like to use the pendulum swinging. Life is a game, a dance, whatever you want to call it, but don't let the triggers of old things like, oh, I don't play games, like, we all play games. It's just, it's a divine dance, in my opinion. Instead of seeing things as a negative form of a game, we can use it to dance, right? So years ago, I have a half sister who's older than I am, and it's really kind of cool because even though I didn't grow up with my half brother or my half sister, both of them are very highly intelligent. And one of the conversations I had with Jaleh, this is my older sister, she said to me, how you show up in conflict resolution, right? So when you show up to someone and you find that you're resisting each other or you're not in accord, you're disagreeing, this is life. This is life in everything we do. You're either agreeing with it and going along with it, you're either resisting and pushing against it, creating more tension and discomfort, or you're finding a way to work with it and dance with it, right? So she says to me, she comes up because she has a degree in psychology and does a lot of really amazing stuff. She comes up to me and she says, put your hands against mine. She goes, now, when I lean into you, there are a few ways you can handle it. How would you do it? And so this is the question for all of y'all. How do you show up to life? How is your resilience? Do you lean into it and push against it? Or do you just let go and let it be? Because the person will fall into you, right? Or you find a way to flow, to move, right? You see, I love to dance. My sister was also a dancer, right? It's just natural in all of us, actually. It's this feminine energy this fluidity, the need to be in constant motion, to constantly create, to nurture, right? To embrace, to harness, to grow up. That's why we show up. And when I use those terms, grow up, I don't mean like the old adage, if you saw my video earlier. You know, some of us were really kind of stigmatized with, you need to grow up. You need to grow up. I was one of them. Why do I need to grow up? In fact, I remember my inner child was like, I don't need to grow up. Since when? Meaning, in the sense that I use these terms, I'm referring to, I want to show up so I can grow up into the vast being I came here to be, to serve in the most opportune way for those who seek it, to show up not just for myself, but all that I came here to show up for. And growing up into that, it sometimes can be painful because, again, growth is also a form of death and transition and transformation. And it's that dance, and it's recognizing how you can flow in life, right? Ease and grace, or resistance that will be persistent. I know for me, it hadn't always been so easy to say, oh yes, I'm going to dance with this energy. In fact, I was the quickest to resist it, persist it, and keep on reliving it. But in my heart and the true nature of who I am, I like to play. I want to have fun. I want to dance. I want to sing. I want to be silly. We take things too serious. When we get reactive with people, when we blow up in situations, that's really a reflection of an impatience of something within us that only we know. Nobody else could ever figure it out. I can't turn around and say, well, I don't understand why you're being that way toward me if you're, upset, for example. The impatience really comes from the internal. It's never imposed upon you. People may do things that you may say it upsets you, but when it really boils down to it, we go back inside of ourselves and go, oh, well, if I really trace it back, I recognize that that person is exhibiting something in me I'm very impatient with and don't want to be bothered with in someone else because I'm not even able to deal with it in myself. And that's what I've learned in my experience. When I have talked to my sister, my other sister, my younger sister, she's expressed to me, yeah, you're right. When I really thought about it, it really had nothing to do with that person that I was upset with. It really started out in the early part of my day and how I was upset with myself and impatient with myself because it didn't get up early enough and I didn't get out the door when I wanted to, and I had to rely upon mom, and instead of, just taking a deep breath, I let it spiral out of control. And that's typically what happens in our lives. That our lives have spiraled out of control and we don't even know how to show up for ourselves anymore. We forget that there's this innate sense of playfulness, this ability to be amazed and at awe at everything that shows up to us. The true play in life, the cosmic giggle when the universe tickles, is really just seeing everything as perfect. Seeing everything as really playing out in your benefit, for your favor and your benefit. In such a wide, yes, I like that. Inner child awareness. The inner child has a much more keen sense of awareness than we give it credit. Quite often when we were growing up, and those of us who heard too often the "you need to grow up," which was like, well, why am I in a rush? Because when you look back, you think, why was I in a rush to become an adult? To get indoctrinated into a society, into a culture where now you have to follow so-called rules to get along, to go along, to fit in when you're meant to stand out, right? When you really kind of step back into all that you've been through, how many of you can turn around and say honestly that you said, I was a little girl, for me, for example, I knew I wanted to do something huge. I knew I wanted to be part of something big. I knew whatever it was that I'm meant to serve, what capacity, that I couldn't put words to it. I didn't know how to articulate it. Just like I said, we come into this world with so much more knowing, innate knowing, that this conditioning as we get older and older just creates more layers to peel off. We lose our intimacy, our instincts, right? Instinctual knowing that we're pure, because we start to want to fit in with the external, then to go within and see the real. But we're meant to do that for reasons that are only within our soul, within our purpose, our path. I don't think we ever truly lose our innocence unless we believe that's possible. I truly believe I still have retained innocence. I think we all have. Innocence in the awe of life, for example. There's so much beauty to behold. If we want to return back to innocence, then we have to let go of all those past experiences, belief systems, behaviors, the filters of our lives, right? They're muddied. The muddied waters, for example. Muddied waters make everything look dirtier, right? So when you want to see something clearly, you have to take off the lens, right? You have to drop the labels, drop your ideologies, drop your perfectionism, drop your past experiences in the way that we may project or impose them upon every situation, every person, every encounter that we have. And then we can return to the innocence, right? That song by Enigma, Return to the Innocence. And that's what playing is about. It's realizing, you know, I can look at that situation, I can get upset at it, which you have a choice at every moment, or I can just go, okay, what is this here to teach me? What is it I can glean from this and grow up? Because now I'm showing up to it. No matter what, if you want to push it away, it will keep on showing up. If you're willing to look at it, to confront it, and I don't mean confront. See, the word confront, again, has a bad connotation. It makes it sound, it's like conflicting, like argumentative. But confront means to just look at it head on. Don't look away, right? It's to really be vulnerable, to be courageous enough to own our vulnerabilities, and to not feel that we have something we need to suppress or push away. It's opening ourselves up to the awe of life, letting it be awesome. Children know. I was sitting in my doctor's office today, and there was a young child next to me, and he was on YouTube. And I just happened to look over, and he was clearly enjoying his YouTube videos. And I asked him, I said, "Hey there, what are you watching?" And he started sharing all this stuff that he was watching, and all that it interested him. He's 9 years old. He goes, "Yeah, I watched this and I watched that." And so he gave me all this information, and then I shared a couple little things with him. And I knew his father. And when he walked out, I said, "Oh, and by the way, he'll be downloading a few apps now, just to let you know," because I introduced him to a couple new apps. And the children these days, I don't care how old you are, if you want to regain your youth and your vitality and vibrancy, hang out with some children, right? Because they're going to remind you through their fresh eyes what is still possible that you may have forgotten, that you might have lost that innocence. Yeah, there's a lot of bad things happening in the world. Don't let that cloud you. Don't let it, jade you is the word I like to use. My mother used to say to me, and she never understood why there were all these grumpy old ladies. And then she got to be a little bit older, and she said, "Now I understand." Based on my own mom's experiences, she was saying that, with all the stuff that's happened to me, they put up this shield, and that's kind of how it happens. But the more you resist embracing all that is and living with what you have gone through, don't allow it to jade you and take you out of the beauty and the richness of life. That's why we're meant to play, to have fun. Spontaneously, randomly, just show up. And life will surprise you if you're willing to drop the filter, take off the muddy lens, focus in, and really capture the beauty that is life. Does anybody have any questions? were you dancing today? Ah. The no-see-ums are out today too. I was walking and I was wondering, why do I feel like I get these itty-bitty little bites? Now that's an unusual thing. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm itching, because I don't know about anybody else, but I itch like one little bite here, little bite there. I feel like I'm being bit all over. It's just like when you see certain bugs, you feel like they're crawling all over you. I don't know if anybody else goes through that. But I really want to remind not just you, but myself. I have to also go back in with my inner child and say, hey, what would you like to do today? How would you like to play? Because maybe I forget. Although, I'll be honest, I want to play all the time, most of the time. It's rare that I just want to be quiet and internal unless I'm really in reflective mode. And I do my meditation, my practice, and I get playful also during my practice. I know that sounds maybe a little counterintuitive because you're supposed to be silent, you're supposed to be still when you meditate. But for anybody out there, haven't you gotten insights? If you're a meditator, if you're somebody who just is doing something and you boom and you just start giggling because it's just so funny, but maybe it makes sense and you're going, how come I didn't know that already? So for me, a lot of times that's what's happening. But yeah, I like to go out and I want to jump and I want to dance and I want to skip and I want to sing, and I just want to have a celebration more often than I may have been in the past, stuck and fixated on what wasn't working. Kids can always find the humor and the excitement in life. And even for those of us when we were kids and maybe we had a lot of disappointment at those younger ages, there's still the possibility to still see with fresh eyes. It's when we get older and older that it seems like, why am I just so miserable? Because maybe we just held on to it and we allowed it to reconnect and keep on triggering and upsetting us. And not all of us found the healthiest ways to heal. Hi Lynn and Kelly, how are you? Yeah, I just wanted to play today. How about you? Are you getting outside in nature? Walking your inner child, doing some cartwheels along the sidewalk, maybe taking out the chalk. A little bit of art, a little bit of song, a little bit of dance. A little bit of a what squat. Oh, I could just sit here and listen to the sounds of the waves hitting along the water. This bunch of rocks over here. Can you hear it well? Because it's really nice. 69 is a good temperature, actually. It was up to 84 today, and I've been so chilled I really needed to get out. Hi, Dinah or Dina. I don't know if you corrected me that one time. Hi, yeah, it really is beautiful out today, and I just wanted to be out in the sun. And I'm going to be going to the beach soon because the weather's starting to get warm, and it has been. Obviously, it's unseasonable anyway for the beach. But when the weather starts getting into the 80s, and there'll still be a coolness to the water. Dina, thank you. I suspected, but I want to make sure. So now that I pronounced it right, Dina, I love you. Big hugs and kisses. I truly like to spend a lot more time at the beach. I clearly am not going to be able to do the Buddy thing because Buddy did not like it when I took him to the dog park, and that was the day when I was covered in no-see-ums just biting me all over. I was literally slapping myself trying to do a live video and going, oh my gosh, I can't handle it anymore. That also was the day when I was being chased by tiger mosquitoes on the way back to the car. But Buddy doesn't like to get in the water, and I haven't figured out the trick yet. But I'm going to let him figure it out because I know when I had my Angel, she did not like to get in the water after I threw her in. Right, Kelly? That was not a fun day. But I will be playing, I will be swimming. I love to swim in the water, and especially when it's cold because it's so invigorating to your system. Sparkle, 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 sparkle. Yeah. So the video might not be as playful, but it's really just to remind you to let your little inner child out. Just return to the play of life and not allow it to change you. And find ways to find the awe, find the beauty in everything that you see, everything that you do, even the people that you encounter. I mean, right now, we're Mercury retrograde, for example. Computer, electronic issues pop up during this time. Hitting the send button before you mean to. Be careful in your communication. Be clear. Be precise. If you have nothing nice to say, keep it zipped, because you may regret some words you may spill out. I really highly recommend that you do that all the time anyway. Compassionate communication, it's huge. It's really important that we all learn to tame the inner dialogue, so that our actual dialogues, and when we engage with those we speak with, whether it's someone you love or someone in a work or social gathering, that they're the nicest, kindest words you could use. Because whatever we speak to someone, we want to also receive. And so when you speak words, think of them as if you're saying them to yourself. Think of how your inner child would want to be spoken to and treated. Because your inner child's going to come out at different times when you let them. Right? My inner child comes out quite often, and she just wants to be silly. She just wants to dance around the house, play, make jokes. Yeah. Life is good. Alright, y'all. I love you. It's a short video. I'm just going to kind of sit by the water for a little bit here now. And just bask in the play of the waves and the sparkle of the sun reflecting. So have an amazing Motivational Monday. Get your groove on. And if you haven't introduced yourself in the group, please do me a favor. That would really, really be beautiful. Create a new post. Tell us what your fitness and health goals are, what your overall lifestyle goals are, and anything that you may want us to do or maybe share. And if you have the courage, go live, and I want to see you dance, baby. Get your groove on. I love you. Have an amazing evening.